Welcome to this episode of the Gadfly and the People. I'm your host, Christopher James Curry, also known as the Gadfly. You, the listeners, the viewers, if you're on YouTube, are the people. And this is the Gadfly and the People podcast, the podcast for the people, by the people, of one person. Of the people, we're going to do interviews. Let's talk about what the podcast is. How should we start? There are different ways that we can go about this. We can talk about the inspiration for the podcast. We can talk about the name. It's an interesting name, if you ask me. The goal. How should we start? Let's start with the inspiration. I've always wanted to do a podcast. I feel like it's the easy way for me to test my creative abilities. I just kind of put it out there and I can see just what I have in terms of creative material to put out there and see just to see if the people might embrace it. Also, it's a cool way for me to explore the ideas that I've always wanted to explore, to read the books I've wanted to read and talk about them and share that with people. To get to know people as well, to interview people. I've always wanted to do that. I've always also just liked the idea of production, and this isn't cinema necessarily, but I love movies and I love cinema production, and I've always wanted to make movies. So this is like a weird way for me to kind of bring all of these things together. Whenever we had a project in English class, we always had a project about a book that we read. You can make a poster, or you can write a song or something. Or you can make a movie, and I always did the movie scene reenactments. That was always fun. I loved doing that. That was always fun for me. And so, I guess this is a weird way, a cool way for me to kind of bring all of this together. Then what was I going to talk? The name, the Gadfly and the People. The Gadfly and the People the inspiration for the name comes from Plato's Dialogues. I think it's the Apology, where Socrates dubs himself the Gadfly of Athens. And he's a gadfly because gadflies are annoying, and he's annoying to Athens because he's asking the questions that the people of Athens don't really want to ask. And he's showing them the inconsistencies of their life. Excuse me. And not to say that I'm on the same level of Socrates, but I think everybody has a little bit of that, where you love to just ask questions and pry away at people and figure out what it is that you're thinking. And then if you find a contradiction, if you find an inconsistency, it's nice to point that out. Oh, I do that too often with myself. Or maybe I don't do it often enough with myself. That's the point. The Gadfly and the People, episode 1, off to a great start. What are we going to do on the podcast? I ought to slow down. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been trying to get the first episode of the podcast recorded for 3 days now. I bought all of the equipment on Tuesday, and Tuesday night I recorded 40 minutes, and I didn't like any of it. Well, I did like some of it, but I didn't really like the way that it went. I didn't like the sound. So I figured, you know what? I'll record it tomorrow. Went to bed, went to work, got home around 5:30. And then I tried recording it, but I didn't like the sound. I didn't like the way. And then I realized I hadn't figured out how to set up the sound yet. Now, part of this as well, you have to understand, I'm comparing myself to people who have spent tens of thousands of dollars on their podcast equipment. And they have people who specifically work on just the sound, and you have people who specifically work on the camera, and people who specifically work on the script. I'm trying to do it all. I can't. I have to keep myself in my lane. If I'm trying to do it all, it's going to be low quality. But if I try to do one thing really good, maybe it would be decent. Hopefully the content is what is really good. That's what I'm really hoping for. I also want the sound to be good as well. That would be good. What are we going to have on the podcast? What's the goal of the podcast? What is the ultimate goal of the podcast? The goal of the podcast is to present and express the development of thought within the development of thought of an entire civilization. It's a podcast about everything, really. We're going to literally talk about everything. Politics, news, culture, sports, philosophy, theology, the arts, science even. I'm going to try my best at the sciences. One guy, I was asking around some people, who do you think I should interview? And this is, I think, I was calling some people, and I was asking, who do you think I should interview? One fella suggested, a friend from school, he suggested that I interview the head of the math department at our school. And I think I'm going to do that because he's an interesting guy. And I would love to get him on a podcast because he would be good. So we're going to do everything. We're going to talk about everything with as many people as we can. We're going to do one-on-one sit-down interviews. I'd like to get a second microphone for that. All I have is one microphone right now. But I bought an interface that can hook up two microphones, which is good. I was originally looking at an interface that could only hook up one microphone, but luckily I bought one that had two. I bought it off Facebook Marketplace. It was $60. Very happy with that. Bought the microphone for $20 on Facebook Marketplace. I've literally pieceworked all of this from Facebook Marketplace and one local guitar shop where I got a cord. I think I also went to Target and I got a little adapter that plugs into my Mac. But beyond that, I'm really operating off of a budget here. But it's good. The thing is I realize now I had the opportunity to do this. This is my point. I had the opportunity to do this podcast. We're getting back to the inspiration for the podcast now. I had the opportunity to do that. I've always wanted to do it. I had the opportunity now that I had some cash flow from the Christmas season. And it was my birthday as well, this past Christmas season. So I guess we're still in the Christmas season. But I got some cash, and I was, I need an oil change. However, could get the podcast started. I also went down to New Orleans. I did spend quite a bit of money in New Orleans. We went to the Notre Dame versus Georgia game down there. That was a lot of fun. Oh, that was a good time. But expensive. Oh! Now Notre Dame plays Penn State tonight at 7:30. It's going to be a good game if you ask me. I'm feeling pretty confident, actually. I haven't felt this confident for a Notre Dame postseason game in a long time. Chance to make the college football national championship for the first time since 2013. This could be our year. I'd say we have probably the third best chance to win the championship. But I think we can do it. I think we have the tools. Enough about Notre Dame. This isn't about Notre Dame. I had the money. I had the money to get the podcast stuff. I went, I got the podcast stuff, and here we are. We're doing it. We're doing the podcast. The Gadfly The People, episode 1. So we're going to do one-on-one interviews. We'll talk with people. We'll talk with people about all sorts of different things. I have a list of people already in mind that I would like to interview. It's going to start kind of in the general community of where I'm from. It's a podcast about the people, but it's going to start probably with, and then once I develop a listenership, hopefully if I develop a listenership, we'll be able to spread out, branch out. I think the key is going to be being able to pump out content, finding time to do that. And today it makes sense for me to do the first episode because I have time. Today's my day off. So the thing that I am worried about is because I have something specific in mind of what I want the podcast to look like. I'm going to spend a lot of time editing, and that's going to be time consuming as well. So the goal is to get one podcast a week. One podcast a week. Once we get the locals up and going, once I get a listenership that warrants having a locals, once we get the podcast going, once we get the local, we'll get one podcast a week, just the general free to everybody podcast. For the locals, we'll do added content, one thing a week kind of thing. Each episode's going to look different as well. I mean, we're going to have like a set kind of schedule. But I have some ideas on what, for the sake of variety, because I don't want to do the same thing every single time. I'd like to change it up. Variety is the spice of life? Or is that pepper? Variety. We need something different. You don't want to listen to the same thing every single week. A man blabbering on about the price of Dave's singles at Wendy's. Remember when those were cheap? So we're going to do different segments every week. I'd like to do one interview. The goal would be to do one interview every other week. So every other podcast, we'll do an interview. But more likely, it's going to be probably once a month we're going to be doing an interview. And then the time in between, it's going to be spent using different segments. And I've got some ideas for quite a few different segments here. I guess we'll go through the segments to start. We'll go through some segments to start. First segment, the paper trail. All I have is a bullet point, the paper trail. I do not know what I meant by it. The paper trail. Gadfly The People, episode 1, the paper trail. What would the paper trail be? Maybe we read a paper? Ooh, there we go. We could read some sort of paper and present it. What would the paper be about? Paper could be about anything. Maybe I'll go... What I'm going to do is I'm going to... Nope, scratch that. We're not going to do the paper trail. Lord of the Flies? Lord of the Flies. Address a particular topic in society at hand and give my own opinion on it. I think that would be... I do think that would be interesting. That would kind of be more like reading the news, though. And I have a really good segment in mind for reading the news. On the Line. That one I want to do once a month, where I call people in my contacts and I get a hot take. They give me their hot take that they've, or something that they've been thinking about, something they'd like to discuss. On the Line. Real Rhetoric. This one's very simple. I just want to do movie reviews. I think movie reviews are an easy one to do. I think they're fun to do. It's a good way to get people involved. A couple nights ago, I called a bunch of people and I got ideas for a first movie that we can do. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit. When I talk about what we're gonna do in the next episode, I'll talk about that. But movie reviews, I'd like to do that. Book reviews, I'd like to do that. That might be something that I'll probably do. So this is the thing. I want to do a book club once. Whoa! Excuse me. Episode 1. Please forgive me. We're gonna hopefully get a locals going. I hear locals is, at least the way I understand it, locals seems to be the best option for doing what at least I want to do. Patreon seems like a cool option. But Patreon, it doesn't have that community element. In locals, what I understand is that people in the locals community can interact with everybody else, and that seems a little bit more my style. So I'd like that. And I also understand that I think locals has the live stream option, and I'd like to do that as well. So with locals, there's going to be different levels to it. On like the second level, I'd like to have a book club, locals, where basically it's me just reading a book, and you get to interact with that and listen to that. You get to listen to me read a book. What was the other thing that I had for the level 2? Oh yes, project development. I have a bunch of different projects. Oh, why are we getting into locals now? Okay, anyways, this is where I was going with it originally. The book club, we would do the book club, and maybe we would do a live stream reading, and everybody reads along. Maybe a Zoom call, Zoom call book club for locals, level 2, once a month. We'll have to see. We'll have to play around with the idea. But I could do a book review for the podcast. But I could do a book club for the locals, and I think that would work. Same thing. I could probably do the same thing with the movie. The movie reviews, I think, are gonna. I'm probably just gonna do movie reviews. I'm probably not gonna have everybody come to my house and watch a movie with me. That'd be hard. We're gonna do movie reviews. We're gonna do book reviews. For the locals, we're gonna do a book club. Stay tuned. I wanted to call the guest segment, the interview segment, the fly swatter. Where I kind of get to question what people do, their job, what they think about things. I think that'd be fun. I wanted to do Q&As, obviously. Q&As are going to be fun. An advice column. That's also what I'd love to do, an advice column. People just ask me for my advice on things. And there's a podcast that I listen to. I don't want to... This is the thing. Everybody's kind of stealing from everybody when it comes to their podcast. You have your thing, you talk about it, Excuse me. You have your thing and you talk about it, and it's like geared to your specifications, but everybody kind of does the same thing. And you take inspiration from it, and people try to do it in their own way and perfect it and make it more or less entertaining. So I don't feel bad if I take from somebody else's podcast. It means I like your podcast, if anything. You should take it as a compliment. Not that I'm stealing your own creative genius. But I also want to do my own thing. And that's why I'm really excited about the What's Buzzin' segment. I think that's really a good... Maybe it's not good. I think it's at least not morally reprehensible. We're going to come up with more ideas for segments. The podcast will grow. It's going to shift. It's going to ebb. It's going to flow. It might even become more specific in what it's addressing later on as we go down the line. But for episode 1, this is what I have in mind. Episode 2, when we have a full regimented episode, not just an introduction, but like a full regimented episode, I will get into, and we start doing some of the things that I'm talking about here, then I think we're going to be rolling. But things are going to shift. Things are going to ebb and flow. How long have we been going here? 20 minutes. I'm hoping to keep these between 30 to 45 minutes. The interview ones are going to be longer. Those are probably going to be like an hour and a half, because I want to have a good sit-down conversation. And I don't want it to just be an isolated interview. I'd like to surround it with some other stuff, supplement it. I'd like to talk about the interview. We're going to do lots of different things. I did come up with a few questions, though. We'll finish off. I have some agenda items that I want to get to, some questions, some thoughts with you guys that I wanted to get to, and then I wanted to get into what we're going to do for the next week moving forward. So, agenda question number 1. Is the McRib really good if they're withholding it from us all the time? If something is actually good, then you don't withhold that thing from people, like water. Why do you think you can go into any restaurant and ask for water? Because you can't say no to giving somebody water. If you have it, it's free. At least in America it is. I hear in Europe it's not free. You have to buy it, which is interesting. I wonder if I went to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant and asked for a water, if I would get the water for free. But I was asking my mom about the McRib the other day, and I was asking, why are they withholding it from us so much if it is good? And it's either bad or they're doing something deliberately evil and withholding something that's good from us. So the McRib, this is my take. The McRib is either bad for you, okay, and therefore they're withholding it from us isn't a bad thing. Or the McRib is good and they're doing a bad thing by withholding it from us as long as they have been. I asked my mom. She said it's just a marketing scheme. But even then, if it's a marketing scheme, if you're withholding something good purely for profit and marketing, I think that's a bad thing. But if you're withholding something bad for a marketing scheme, well then, that's another separate issue. Then the question then becomes, why are you even serving something that you know is bad? What do you think, McDonald's? Is the McRib good? I've never had the McRib. I'd like to try it. Actually, I don't want to try it. It doesn't look appetizing. Actually, that's not true. Maybe I did have it one time, like 10 years ago or something like that. Again, it was so long ago because they only give it to us so infrequently. And if it is good, which I can't remember, why do they withhold it from us? My wisdom tooth is coming in. That's when I realized that I should start the podcast. I always wanted to start a podcast. I didn't think I was funny enough. I didn't think I was intelligent enough. I didn't think I was interesting enough. I didn't think I was creative enough. But once I felt my wisdom tooth start coming in, which was a few days ago, I knew that I had, now I'm wise enough. My wisdom tooth is coming in. The other day on Tuesday, I saw not a bumper sticker, but it was like a windshield sticker on the back of somebody's car. They had a windshield sticker that said, "Existence is pain," and it had like a stick figure that was like hands up. Existence is pain. Oh, what a terrible conception of life. But if you definitely believe that existence is pain and you're willing to put that on the back of your car, then you should drive into a tree. If you truly believe that, and I think that people only truly believe what they put on the back of their car. So if existence is pain, drive into a tree. Podcast equipment is confusing and expensive. I don't know anything about sound. I don't know anything about recording. I don't know anything. I know a little bit about editing. But in terms of using a microphone and in terms of recording with a microphone, I don't really know anything about it. So how this turns out, is it going to be auditorily, or is it going to be pleasing to your hearing senses? Who knows? Your auditory senses? Auditory sense? Is it going to be pleasing to it? I don't know. I hope it is. But if it's bad, it's only going to get better. And that's a reason to continue to listen. If it's bad, it's only going to get better. I don't know what a Tupperware party is. My neighbors across the street, when we were kids, they used to have a lot of Tupperware parties, and I heard one of my buddies at the coffee shop mention it the other day, and I don't know what a Tupperware party is. So, question of the day, what is a Tupperware party? A Tupperware party, according to the AI review of Google, says that it is a social event where a Tupperware consultant sells their products to friends, neighbors, and... Why do people have Tupperware parties? Tupperware parties became popular as they allowed women an opportunity to socialize and make friends, and for some, a chance to earn money. I thought a Tupperware party was where you brought like all of your leftovers that was in your Tupperware and you just ate food together. Now I understand that it's a marketing ploy and a way to make money, and I do not know if I necessarily like that. Why would you invite your friends over just to sell them Tupperware? Invite them over for coffee. Invite them over for a drink. Invite them over for having dinner out of the Tupperware. Eat your leftovers with your friends, if anything. That's what a Tupperware party should be. No. A Tupperware party is where women can make friends and sell Tupperware. That is... Oh. I work at a law firm, and we had a client come in yesterday. And he kept talking poorly about his friend. I'm not going to say his name. We'll make up a name for him. Nate Kebab. Nate Kebab hates his best friend. But when his best friend showed up, I realized that's just the way their friendship is. They just like to talk smack about each other. And I realized I probably do that with my friends as well. We definitely talk smack. Actually, no, we don't do that. I never say a bad thing about my friends behind their backs. But I would never say good things to their face as well. I have a note here that says social media creation, but I don't know what it's referring to. I'm trying to remember. First episode, high quality content, the Gadfly and the People. I think I remember. So, I realized as soon as I started putting everything together that I'm now going to have to get back onto the social media. I mean, I never 100% left. I tried at times. I did re-download Facebook quite a few times. But I deleted my Snapchat. I deleted my Instagram. I deleted YouTube. I deleted everything. And now I have to get it back to promote the podcast. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to have my fiance take care of that. I'm going to create things on my computer, have her post them from her phone. I think that's what we're going to have to do. She got a new phone as well, so I think that's going to be fine. Okay. And I'm not excited about that. I don't like the one qualm that I have with starting this, or the one thing that I guess the problem that I have with this, and maybe it's indicative of the fact that I shouldn't do it, but the problem that I have with this is that I'm inherently becoming a part of something that I despise, which is content creation. And I shouldn't say I despise it, though, because I use it all the time. And it honestly, this is going to sound bad, but it helps me go about the day and tolerate it a little bit better. Being able to listen to a podcast and hear somebody else talk about whatever, anything, and you can learn a little bit, that helps you get through the day a little bit better. So, excuse me. So I don't know how I quite feel about that yet. Because part of me wants to sell everything, or not even sell, burn everything that I own and go be a hermit. Part of me really wants to do that. But also part of me wants to live in a small home in the countryside with no technology, no heating, and just live off of whatever I have and read. And then there's the part of me that wants to be famous and rich and make money. So it's Augustine's two loves, but there's like 6 or 7 of them for me, and I don't know which way I want to go. I called a bunch of people on Tuesday night. Today is Thursday. I called a bunch of people on Thursday night, and I asked them who do they think I should interview for the first interview. And I'm not going to say who, but the person who got the most votes I know how busy he or she is. And so I don't want to bother them. So we're probably going to have to take it a different route, and we're probably going to have to just interview somebody who's closer to me. I don't want to do family because that's weird. I have a buddy, actually one of the buddies that I called. I think I'm going to interview him. I think I'm going to ask to interview him. And I think that would be good. I don't want it to just be friends. I had some friends from high school. They started a podcast, and it was two brothers, and they just like interviewed their dad and their buddies from high school. And I did not like that. But it might be what I have to do. Maybe I'll start with somebody who's like a real professional, and I'll talk with them about their profession. I don't know. Let's make an agenda. Creating a to-do list for the next episode. 1, find someone to interview and schedule it. Find someone, schedule it, make it possible, and make it happen. Next, next thing for the next episode, put together a regimented and segmented episode, like a schedule. We're gonna need content, so put together some content. I have a lot of things in mind for content and what I can do for like the first few episodes to kind of get my feet going, or to get my feet wet, or get the thing going. So I have a lot of things that I can do there. And I think I'm just going to kind of go into that. I think we'll start with the What's Buzzin' next episode. Dr. Dre, next episode. Put together social medias. Not a fan of that. We're going to put together social media. We're going to find some... Oh, that's what I wanted to do. I need to find somebody who can put together a graphic for the logo. Right now, I'm just stealing a painting that I found online of an old man sitting at a bar and drinking wine. And I like that painting a lot. I think it's super cool. And then I just have like the title of the podcast in yellow. I want to find somebody. I have a lot of friends, a lot of artist friends. I want to find them and ask them. Hopefully pay them. Maybe pay them, but hopefully they'll just do it for free. But pay them to put together a graphic for me. We should also do some photography. We'll do some photography shoot for what's it called? Promotional stuff on the social media. So we have like a week to do all of this. I don't know if I can. Let's prioritize. Photography shoot, we can do that later. Social media for sure. Podcast cover for sure. Interview for sure. Content for the next one. That's 4 things. I think all 4 of those are doable and possible before I try to record next week. It's probably going to be next week, Wednesday. So I have less than 7 days to get all this together. I do have the weekend. I have a free weekend. So we're going to do it this weekend. We're going to get a lot of stuff done on Saturday. Saturday we're going to go to the coffee shop and we're going to market ourselves. What's the word called? Yeah, market ourselves and try to get people to do things hopefully for free. So I feel like we ought to close with a poem. And I think we'll close with some Chesterton. Not particularly well known for his poetry. He does have this is a collection of all of his poems. And it's a pretty thick book. I wouldn't say that he's a poet per se, but he is a poet. But then I wouldn't say that I'm a poet. We're going to read 3 stanzas out of the 4 from a poem titled The World State. And I love this poem. I think it's a great poem. It's kind of how I feel politically at the moment. Not that I feel what's going on, but I guess what I believe politically. This is what I believe. Maybe not. It contains elements of what I believe. More nuanced. The World State, stanza number 2 through 4. G.K. Chesterton. The World State. The Gadfly and the People, the World State. The international idea, the largest and the clearest, is welding all the nations now, except the one that's nearest. This compromise has long been known, this scheme of partial pardons, in ethical societies and small suburban gardens. The villas and the chapels where I learned with little labor the way to love my fellow man and hate my next door neighbor. Gilbert Keith Chesterton. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this first episode of The Gadfly and the People. We'll be back next week with hopefully another episode, some more content. We'll have some things developed. I have a list of things to do. Thank you for tuning in. Please come back again. I love you.
Seli di kanda Chokomela di sawere keserame Hale seli di kanda Mewe Chokomela di sawere keserame Elangwane Su Como se ezamuhadi Elangwane Sanchez, brother, to look out for the cattle. Hey, this one is Ushaba Hala. Understand the kind of Homa Mama, Taconella, this one, Ricky Serame. Understand the kind of Homa Mama, Taconella, this one, when you run on the range and you driving the herd, the Poncho Sanchez, easy on the cattle. Hey, la, hola, hey, la, one is to you. This one is to Sheba, hala. When they handle silly, the corner, mama, mama, Taconella, this one will look a serame. Handle silly, the corner, mama, mama, Taconella, this one will look a serame. Hey, la, one is to you. Ooh, what you doing to me, mama? Ow. Como se que sabe, Hey, now, hola, yeah, now, one day, oh. This one is who shaba, Only still in the corner. Mama, mama, this one when we get set on me. Only still in the corner. Mama, mama, yeah, look at me now, this one when we mom. Jalala, yeah, la wane suwo, como se que sabu hadi.